My name is Amanda. I'm 28 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect marriage with Derek. For 5 wonderful years, we built what I believed was a dream life together. Then Derek lost his job, his sister Brittany moved to town, and everything changed. I never imagined the man who promised to cherish me forever would one day throw scalding coffee in my face over a credit card. Before I share how my perfect marriage crumbled in a single morning, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about finding strength when everything falls apart. Derek and I met during our junior year of college. I was studying marketing while he was pursuing a business degree. Our first encounter happened in the campus coffee shop where I accidentally spilled my latte on his economics textbook. Mortified, I offered to buy him a replacement, but instead, he asked me to dinner. That dinner turned into the most captivating conversation I'd ever had. Derek was charming, ambitious, and seemed genuinely interested in my dreams and aspirations. Our courtship was like something from a romance novel. Derek would surprise me with handwritten notes tucked into my textbooks. He'd plan elaborate dates, picnics under the stars, weekend road trips to quaint small towns, and once even arranged for us to watch the sunrise from a hot air balloon. We talked endlessly about our future, the careers we'd build, the places we'd travel, the home we'd create together. After graduation, Derek landed a promising position at a financial consulting firm while I secured a job at a marketing agency. 2 years into our relationship, during a weekend trip to the mountains, he proposed at sunset overlooking a breathtaking valley. I said yes without hesitation. The wedding was intimate, just close friends and family, exactly how we wanted it. The early years of our marriage were blissful. We saved diligently and purchased our first home, a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with excellent schools. We talked about starting a family in a few years, once we were more established in our careers. Derek was quickly climbing the corporate ladder, receiving promotion after promotion, while I was building a solid reputation in the marketing industry. Looking back, I can see the red flags that I conveniently ignored. Derek would occasionally make comments about my spending, even though I was always careful with money. He'd question my lunch meetings with male colleagues. If I went out with friends, he'd text constantly, wanting to know when I'd be home. I dismissed these behaviors as him being protective or concerned. Derek came from a close-knit family, particularly with his younger sister Brittany. From the beginning of our relationship, I noticed something unusual about their dynamic. Derek seemed to feel responsible for solving all of Brittany's problems. When she'd call about a financial crisis or a relationship drama, he'd drop everything to rush to her aid. I tried to be understanding. Family is important, after all. 3 months ago, Derek was unexpectedly laid off when his company underwent a massive restructuring. The termination package was generous, but Derek's identity was so intertwined with his career that losing his job devastated him. Suddenly, his confidence vanished. He spent days in his pajamas, mindlessly scrolling through job postings, but rarely applying. When I'd gently encourage him, he'd snap at me, saying I couldn't possibly understand how he felt. Our financial situation wasn't dire. We had savings, and my income could cover our essential expenses, but Derek's self-esteem plummeted as he became financially dependent on me. He stopped joining me for dinner with friends, claiming we needed to cut back on unnecessary expenses. He began scrutinizing our bank statements, questioning every purchase I made, even necessities. As Derek struggled with unemployment, Brittany announced she was moving to our city after a messy breakup. Derek immediately offered to help her relocate, using money from our emergency fund without discussing it with me first. When I expressed concern, he accused me of being selfish and unsupportive of his family. Brittany moved into a rental apartment just 15 minutes from our house. Within days, she became a fixture in our lives, dropping by unannounced, staying for dinner, and dominating conversations with her problems. She was between jobs and constantly hinted about her financial struggles. Derek would listen with unwavering sympathy while I noticed inconsistencies in her stories. The perfect marriage I thought I had was beginning to show serious cracks, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. The man who once supported my ambitions now seemed resentful of my success. The partner who celebrated my independence now monitored my spending. And his sister's growing presence in our lives was becoming a wedge between us. What began as occasional disagreements about money evolved into daily arguments. Derek insisted on knowing every detail of my spending, from my morning coffee to my monthly haircut. "We need to be careful now," he'd say, though his concerns seemed only to apply to my expenses, not his own or those he covered for Brittany. One evening, I discovered Derek had set up notifications on his phone for every transaction I made with our joint credit card. When confronted, he claimed it was just to keep track of our budget, but it felt invasive and controlling. I started carrying cash to avoid the interrogations that followed each purchase. Meanwhile, Brittany's small loans became increasingly frequent. $50 for groceries, $200 for car repairs, $300 for a medical bill. Derek approved these requests without hesitation, dismissing my concerns with, "She's family, Amanda. She'd do the same for us." After Brittany borrowed $800 for apartment deposit insurance, something I later discovered wasn't a real thing, I decided to set boundaries. "I understand wanting to help your sister," I told Derek, "but we need to establish limits. We can't be her financial safety net forever." Derek's reaction was chilling. "You've never liked Brittany," he accused. "You've always been jealous of how close we are. She's going through a rough time, and family supports family." When I reminded him that we were also family and should make financial decisions together, he stormed out and spent the night at Brittany's apartment. My best friend Rachel noticed the change in me during our monthly lunch date. "You seem stressed," she observed. "Is everything okay with Derek?" The concern in her eyes broke my composure, and everything spilled out. Derek's job loss, his controlling behavior, Brittany's constant demands. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Amanda, what you're describing sounds like financial abuse," she said softly. "He's using money to control you." I dismissed her concerns initially. "It's just stress from unemployment," I insisted. "Once he finds a job, things will go back to normal." But Rachel's words lingered in my mind, especially when Derek questioned a work lunch on our credit card statement the following day. "Who were you with?" he demanded. "Why didn't you bring leftovers from home? Do you know how wasteful restaurant lunches are?" That evening, I attempted to have a calm discussion about our finances. I created a budget spreadsheet showing our income, expenses, and savings. "I think this could help us feel more secure during your job search," I explained, trying to frame it positively. Derek barely glanced at my work. "The problem isn't the budget," he said dismissively. "It's your spending. If you were more careful, we wouldn't need this conversation." I was stunned. "Derek, I'm the only one bringing in an income right now. I've cut back on everything non-essential. Meanwhile, you've given Brittany almost $2,000 in the past month. Are you keeping score?" he snapped. "Counting every penny I give my sister who's struggling? That's really cold, Amanda." The argument escalated until Derek threw the budget spreadsheet across the room and stormed out again. I sat alone in our living room, wondering how the man who once treated me with such kindness could now twist my words and make me feel like I was the unreasonable one. The next morning, I received a notification from our bank about a large withdrawal from our joint savings account. $2,500 gone. When Derek returned home that evening, I asked about the missing money. After several minutes of denial, he finally admitted he had loaned it to Brittany for a security deposit on a new apartment. Her landlord raised the rent. She had nowhere else to turn. "You took our savings without discussing it with me," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "That's our emergency fund, Derek." "This was an emergency," he countered. "Would you rather my sister be homeless?" "There are other options, a payment plan with her landlord, a less expensive apartment, roommates." And regardless, we should have made that decision together. Derek's expression darkened. I don't need your permission to help my family. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Rachel's words about financial abuse and realized I needed to protect myself. The next day, I opened a separate bank account in my name only and arranged for my paycheck to be deposited there. I also applied for a credit card in my name alone, a financial lifeline if I needed it. When the credit card arrived a week later, I hid it in my desk drawer at work. I didn't want to be secretive, but Derek's unpredictable behavior left me feeling I had no choice. Little did I know this credit card would soon become the catalyst for the most shocking moment of my marriage. The morning started like any other Tuesday. I woke up at 6:30, showered, and dressed for work. Derek was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs, which was unusual. Typically, he slept in since losing his job, but today he was fully dressed and making breakfast. Good morning, he said, smiling warmly. I made coffee and toast. His sudden cheerfulness caught me off guard. We'd barely spoken since the argument about the savings withdrawal. Thank you, I replied cautiously, accepting the mug he offered. The kitchen was filled with morning light, giving everything a deceptive glow of normalcy. Derek chatted about a promising job lead as he refilled my coffee. I began to relax, hoping perhaps we had turned a corner. So, Derek said, sitting across from me at our small kitchen table. Brittany called this morning. My stomach tightened. Any conversation that began with Brittany's name never ended well. She's having car trouble, he continued, stirring his coffee casually. The transmission needs to be replaced. The mechanic quoted her $5,000. I nearly choked on my toast. $5,000? That's more than her car is worth. She should look into a used car instead. Derek's expression remained neutral. She loves that car. Our parents gave it to her for college graduation. Sentimentality doesn't change the financial reality, I said. A transmission replacement for an older model like hers doesn't make financial sense. Derek took a slow sip of his coffee. Well, I told her we'd help her out. The way he said it, not as a question or suggestion, but as a decision already made, sent a chill through me. Derek, we can't afford to give Brittany $5,000. That's not a small loan. That's a major financial commitment. And with your employment situation. I said we'd help, he interrupted, his voice hardening. She only needs the credit card today to put the deposit down. She's picking up some waitressing shifts starting next week and can pay us back gradually. My mind raced. We'd been down this road before. Brittany had never repaid a single loan since moving to town. Which credit card? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Your new one, Derek said, looking directly at me. The one with the high limit that you've been hiding. A wave of shock hit me. How do you know about that card? I saw the mail before you took it to work, he said with a shrug. Were you planning to keep financial secrets from your husband? The hypocrisy was staggering. Like you kept secret withdrawing money from our savings? I countered. Derek, I got that card to establish independent credit. It's not for funding Brittany's financial emergencies. Just let her use it this once, Derek insisted, his voice taking on a pleading tone. She's desperate. No, I said firmly. I'm not giving Brittany my credit card. If her car is that important to her, she needs to figure out a solution herself. She's an adult. Derek's expression changed instantly, like a mask slipping. The warmth vanished from his eyes, replaced by something cold and unfamiliar. You've always been selfish, he hissed. Always thinking about yourself first. It's not selfish to refuse to go into debt for someone else's car, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We've helped Brittany repeatedly, and she never follows through on repayment. Derek stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Give me the card, Amanda. No, I repeated, also standing now. This conversation is over. I need to get to work. What happened next occurred so quickly I barely had time to react. Derek's face contorted with rage. He grabbed his mug and threw the contents directly at my face. Hot coffee splashed across my skin, the burning sensation immediate and shocking. I screamed in pain, coffee dripping down my face and neck, soaking into my silk blouse. The burning was intense, especially around my right cheek and neck. "Look what you made me do," Derek shouted, as if I were somehow responsible for his actions. I rushed to the sink, splashing cold water on my face, the pain pulsating across my skin. Tears mixed with the coffee and water. "Later, Brittany will come to the house," Derek said, his voice eerily calm now. "Give her your things or get out." He grabbed his keys and wallet from the counter. "I expect this to be resolved by the time I get home," he added before slamming the front door. I stood at the sink, water running, unable to process what had just happened. My husband of 5 years had just assaulted me. Over a credit card. For his sister. As the physical pain began to subside, a deeper emotional agony took its place. This wasn't just about coffee or credit cards or Brittany. This was about control, power, and abuse. And it had been building for months while I'd been making excuses for Derek's behavior. I looked at my reflection in the kitchen window. My skin was red and beginning to blister in spots. But it was my eyes that I didn't recognize, wide, shocked, and filled with the realization that the man I married was gone, if he had ever truly existed at all. My hands trembled as I applied aloe vera to the burns on my face and neck. The cool gel provided momentary relief, but nothing could soothe the emotional trauma of what had just occurred. Tears streamed down my face, stinging the sensitive skin. I called Rachel, barely able to speak through my sobs. "Amanda? What's wrong?" The concern in her voice made me cry harder. "Derek, he threw hot coffee at me," I managed to say. "My face, it burns." "I'm coming over right now," she said without hesitation. "Have you called the police?" The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. "No, I don't know what to do." "Stay where you are. I'll be there in 15 minutes. True to her word, Rachel arrived quickly. She gasped when she saw my face, the right side angry and red with beginning blisters forming. "Oh my God, Amanda. We need to get you to an urgent care clinic." As she drove me to the clinic, Rachel remained calm but resolute. "This isn't a one-time incident, Amanda. This is the escalation of abuse that's been happening for months." "I keep thinking maybe it was an accident," I whispered. "Maybe he didn't mean to." "Stop," Rachel interrupted gently. "Don't make excuses for him. You've been doing that too long already." At the clinic, the doctor documented my injuries, taking photographs for medical records and applying medicated ointment to prevent infection. "These are second-degree burns," she explained. "They should heal without scarring if properly treated, but I'm concerned about how you got them." When I explained what happened, her clinical demeanor softened. "I'm required by law to report suspected domestic abuse," she said. "Would you like me to connect you with a victim's advocate?" The word victim hit me hard. Is that what I was now? While waiting for the prescription, I called my brother Jason. He had never particularly liked Derek, sensing something about him that I had been blind to. When I told him what happened, his reaction was immediate and decisive. "I'm coming to help you pack," he said. "You can't stay there, Amanda." Pack? The reality of what was happening began to sink in. "You think I should leave?" "I know you should leave," Jason said firmly. "This isn't about a bad day or a momentary lapse in judgment. The man threw boiling liquid in your face. What happens next time you disagree with him?" "Next time." The phrase echoed in my mind. If I stayed, there would be a next time. Possibly worse. Back at the house, with Rachel and Jason by my side, I finally allowed myself to see the truth. This morning's violence wasn't isolated. It was the culmination of months of escalating control and emotional abuse. I remembered how Derek had gradually isolated me from friends, claiming they were too expensive to socialize with. How he'd monitor my whereabouts through constant texts. How he'd belittle my concerns and twist situations to make me seem unreasonable. How financial decisions that should have been made together were unilaterally decided when it came to his sister. "I need to get out," I said, the decision suddenly crystal clear. "Today, before he comes home." Jason nodded. "What's the plan?" With surprising clarity, I outlined what needed to happen. "I'll pack my essentials and important documents. Rachel, can I stay with you for a few days until I figure out next steps?" "Of course," she said. "Stay as long as you need." I called Catherine, my boss, explaining the situation in brief, professional terms despite the emotional turmoil inside. Her response was immediate support. "Take whatever time you need, Amanda. Your safety comes first." As we began gathering my belongings, the anxiety about Derek returning early was constant. Every car that drove by made me jump. What if he came back? What if he brought Brittany with him? The thought of confrontation made my burned skin seem to hurt more intensely. Jason found me staring at a wedding photo, tears streaming down my face. "It wasn't real, was it?" I whispered. "The person I thought I married." My brother put his arm around me carefully, avoiding my injured shoulder. "Maybe parts of it were real," he said gently. "But this part, the controlling, abusive part, this is real too. And it's enough reason to leave." He was right. No amount of good memories could justify staying with someone who would hurt me physically and emotionally. No matter how much I had once loved Derek, that love couldn't heal what was broken here. As Rachel helped me pack my clothes and Jason loaded boxes into their cars, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. My marriage was over. That reality brought immense sadness. But with each item I packed, each decision I made independently, I reclaimed a small piece of the autonomy that had been gradually stripped away. "We should document the house before we leave," Rachel suggested, taking photos of each room. "For legal purposes." The mention of legal aspects brought another wave of reality. This wasn't just moving out. This was potentially divorce, restraining orders, and court dates. The life I had planned was completely derailed. But as I looked at my reddened face in the bathroom mirror one last time, I knew with absolute certainty that I was making the right choice. No relationship was worth this kind of fear and pain. No love should require this level of sacrifice. I was leaving the house, but I was finding myself again. And that realization, amidst all the chaos and heartbreak, felt like taking my first full breath in months. "We need to move quickly," Jason said, checking his watch. "Derek usually gets home around 5:30, right?" It was just past noon. Less than 6 hours to erase 5 years of marriage from the house. The task seemed impossible, yet with each passing minute, my resolve strengthened. "Start with your irreplaceable items," Rachel advised. Documents, family heirlooms, photos from before Derek. I moved methodically through the house, my body on autopilot while my mind raced. In the home office, I gathered my birth certificate, passport, social security card, and personal financial documents. From the bedroom, I collected jewelry from my grandmother, photo albums from my childhood, and the handmade quilt my mother had given me when I left for college. As I packed my clothes, I made quick decisions about what to take. Professional attire for work. Comfortable clothes for my temporary stay at Rachel's. Shoes, toiletries, medications. The process was oddly liberating. Distilling my life to essentials revealed how little I truly needed. In our shared closet, I found a shoebox I didn't recognize tucked behind Derek's winter boots. Inside were credit card statements I'd never seen, revealing a secret card with over $12,000 in debt. Purchases for expensive restaurants, electronics, and several large charges at jewelry stores that had never resulted in gifts for me. Was he buying for someone else? Had Brittany's emergencies been bankrolled beyond the money I knew about? "Rachel, look at this," I called, showing her the statements. She examined them briefly. "Keep these. Your lawyer will want to see evidence of hidden debt." The word lawyer triggered another wave of anxiety. I needed legal protection, especially after this morning's assault. "I know a good family attorney," Jason offered. "Michael Winters." He specializes in domestic cases. Want me to call him? I nodded, grateful for my brother's foresight. As Jason stepped outside to make the call, Rachel and I continued emptying the house of my belongings. Each item carried memories, some beautiful, some now tainted by the reality of my marriage. The framed photo from our honeymoon in Maui. The matching coffee mugs with his and hers that had been a housewarming gift. The throw pillows I'd carefully selected for our living room. Some items I packed, others I left behind, each decision a small step toward my new reality. Jason returned looking satisfied. Michael can see you at 3 o'clock today. He's clearing his schedule after I explained the situation. By 2:30, we had loaded most of my possessions into Jason's SUV and Rachel's sedan. I took one final walk through the house that had once represented my dreams for the future. Now it felt like a beautiful facade hiding an ugly truth. In the kitchen, where everything had shattered just hours earlier, I wrote a brief note. Derek, I am leaving because of the physical and emotional abuse. Do not attempt to contact me. Any communication should go through my attorney. I added Michael's contact information, then signed my name. The drive to Michael Winter's office was quiet, my mind cycling through disbelief, sadness, and unexpected moments of clarity. The law office was in a converted Victorian house, its interior warm and reassuring rather than coldly professional. Michael Winters was younger than I expected, perhaps in his early 40s, with kind eyes that conveyed experience with difficult situations. Amanda, he said, shaking my hand. I'm sorry about the circumstances bringing you here. For the next hour, I recounted the progression of my marriage, from Derek's initial charm to this morning's violent culmination. Michael took detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. He didn't react with shock or judgment, just methodical professionalism that I found comforting. Based on what you've told me, I recommend 2 immediate actions, he said when I finished. First, a temporary restraining order due to the assault. Second, filing for legal separation to protect your finances. Will a restraining order be granted? I asked. The burns aren't severe. Michael's expression softened. Amanda, throwing hot coffee in someone's face is assault. The severity of injury doesn't minimize the act of violence. And given the pattern of control you've described, I'm concerned about escalation. He explained the legal process ahead, filing the necessary paperwork, potential court appearances, eventually divorce proceedings. I also recommend we have someone present when Derek returns home, he added, both for documentation and safety. I can't go back there, I said quickly, the thought sending a wave of panic through me. You don't have to, Michael assured me. I meant a representative. Actually, I can go myself. I often do this for clients in domestic situations. With your permission, we could also set up a simple surveillance system to record the interaction legally. The idea of watching Derek's reaction remotely appealed to me. Part of me needed to see the consequences of his actions, to confirm that my decision to leave was justified. Yes, I decided. I'd like that. Michael outlined the next steps, including a recommended financial plan to protect my assets. Transfer your direct deposits to your new account immediately. Monitor your credit report for any unusual activity. And document any communication from Derek or Brittany. As we wrapped up the meeting, Michael added, one more thing, many clients find it helpful to start therapy during this process. Emotional recovery is just as important as legal protection. Outside, Rachel and Jason waited patiently. So, Rachel asked. Michael's going to be at the house when Derek gets home, I explained. And we're filing for a restraining order tomorrow morning. Jason looked relieved. Good. You're staying at Rachel's tonight. I nodded, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the day was fading, leaving bone-deep weariness in its place. The pain from my burns returned, a throbbing reminder of the morning's events. At Rachel's apartment, we unloaded only what I needed immediately. The rest would stay in Jason's garage until I found a more permanent living situation. Rachel prepared the guest room while I took my prescribed pain medication and applied fresh ointment to my burns. The surveillance is set up, Jason announced, joining us in the kitchen with his laptop. Michael just texted. He's at the house waiting. Derek should be home any minute. I stared at the screen showing our living room now half empty, with outlines on the walls where my photos had hung and empty spaces where my books had filled shelves. In that moment, the gravity of what had happened and what was about to happen fully hit me. My marriage was over. My home was no longer mine. My future was uncertain. Yet despite the loss and fear, I felt the first flickers of something unexpected, hope. Whatever came next would be challenging, but it would be my choice. My life. My freedom. The surveillance footage showed our living room from an angle that captured most of the main floor. Michael Winters sat calmly on the sofa, reviewing documents in a leather portfolio. The house looked strange with my belongings removed, half-empty bookshelves, bare walls where my art had hung, the absence of the decorative touches that had made it feel like home. Are you sure you want to watch this? Rachel asked, sitting beside me on her couch. You don't have to. I need to, I replied, my eyes fixed on the screen. I need to see his reaction. At 5:42 p.m., headlights flashed across the living room windows. 2 car doors slammed. My stomach clenched as I recognized Derek's voice, followed by Brittany's higher-pitched tones. They were laughing about something. The front door opened, and Derek stepped inside, Brittany close behind him. They froze simultaneously, taking in the half-empty room before noticing Michael. What the hell? Derek's voice was sharp with surprise. Who are you? Where's Amanda? Michael stood, extending his hand professionally. Mr. Harris, I'm Michael Winters, attorney at law. I represent your wife, Amanda Harris. Derek ignored the outstretched hand. Where is she? What happened to our stuff? Amanda has relocated due to concerns for her safety, Michael stated calmly. I'm here to provide you with some legal documents and explain the immediate next steps. Brittany pushed forward. What is he talking about, Derek? Where's all her stuff? What's going on? Derek's expression cycled rapidly between confusion, anger, and something that looked like fear. This is ridiculous. Amanda and I had a small argument this morning. She's overreacting. Throwing hot coffee in someone's face constitutes assault, Mr. Harris, Michael replied, his tone remaining professional but firm. It's not a small argument in the eyes of the law. Derek's face flushed. That was an accident. I didn't mean to, the cup slipped. She's twisting what happened. From Rachel's couch, I whispered, liar, my fingers digging into my palms. Michael removed several documents from his portfolio. I have here a petition for a temporary restraining order that will be filed tomorrow morning, along with paperwork initiating legal separation. Amanda has documented her injuries from this morning's incident, and the medical report classifies them as second-degree burns. This is insane, Brittany interjected. My brother would never hurt anyone. Amanda's obviously making this up because she doesn't want to help me with my car. She's always been selfish and jealous of our relationship. Michael addressed Brittany directly. Ms. Harris, I suggest you refrain from making defamatory statements about my client. The assault has been medically documented, and there are text messages corroborating the context of this morning's altercation. Derek ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I recognized from whenever he felt cornered. Let me call her. This is just a misunderstanding. He pulled out his phone and dialed my number. On Rachel's coffee table, my phone lit up but remained silent. I had turned off the ringer but couldn't bring myself to block him yet. She's not answering, Derek said, growing more agitated. Look, just tell me where she is. I need to talk to her. My client has specifically requested no contact, Michael replied. Any communication should be directed through my office. This notice legally informs you of that boundary. Derek's demeanor shifted suddenly, his voice becoming pleading. This is ridiculous. I love my wife. We had a bad moment this morning, but that doesn't erase 5 years of marriage. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I'll get help. Tell her Brittany will find another way to fix her car. Watching him switch tactics so easily made me shiver. How many times had I fallen for this exact pattern? An explosion of anger, followed by remorseful promises, then a brief period of kindness before the cycle began again. The restraining order prohibits you from coming within 100 yards of Amanda, her workplace, or her temporary residence, Michael continued, ignoring Derek's pleas. It also prohibits contact via phone, email, text, social media, or through third parties. Brittany's face contorted with anger. This is absolutely ridiculous. You can't just end a marriage and hide behind some lawyer. Derek, don't let her do this to you. Derek's expression hardened again. If she wants to throw away our marriage over one mistake, fine. But half of everything in this house is mine. She can't just take whatever she wants. Amanda has only removed her personal property, Michael explained. A detailed inventory has been documented. Any disputes over marital assets will be addressed during the separation proceedings. I want her gone from my life, Derek suddenly declared, his mood shifting again. If she thinks I'm abusive, she doesn't know what abuse really is. I've put up with her controlling behavior for years. Always monitoring my spending, criticizing how I help my family, making me feel worthless since I lost my job. I gasped at the projection. Derek was describing exactly what he had done to me, but reversing our roles. Your allegations will be noted, Michael said evenly. Now, I need to confirm you understand the restraining order terms. Violation could result in arrest and criminal charges. As Michael continued explaining the legal ramifications, Derek's phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it, then showed it to Brittany. Whatever they read caused both their expressions to darken. Derek looked directly at the camera, the one they weren't supposed to notice, and his eyes narrowed. She's watching this, isn't she? You've got cameras in my house. The surveillance is legal and temporary, Michael stated. It will be removed once this meeting concludes. You're recording me in my own home without my permission? Derek's voice rose. That's an invasion of privacy. I'll sue both of you. One-party consent is legal in this state, Mr. Harris, Michael replied, unfazed. Now, do you understand the terms of the restraining order? Derek's jaw clenched. Get out of my house. Both of you get out now, or I'm calling the police. I'll leave these documents with you, Michael said, placing the folder on the coffee table. The court date is listed on the first page. I suggest you retain legal counsel. As Michael gathered his belongings, Derek turned to Brittany. Call Ryan, he said, referring to a friend who was a police officer. Tell him we have an intruder. That would be inadvisable, Michael said calmly. Filing a false police report is a criminal offense. Derek stepped closer to Michael, his posture threatening. You have 30 seconds to get out. Michael remained composed. Threatening behavior doesn't help your case, Mr. Harris. I'm leaving now, but remember that this entire interaction has been recorded. I watched as Michael walked calmly to the door. Once he was gone, Derek exploded, kicking the coffee table so hard it flipped over, sending the legal documents flying. That bitch, he shouted. After everything I've done for her. She plans this whole thing because I asked to use her credit card? She turns one accident into domestic abuse. Brittany rushed to his side. She's manipulating the situation, Derek. Anyone can see that. We'll fight this. Ryan will help us. Derek paced the room, furiously dialing his phone. When I didn't answer, he began texting rapidly. On my phone, the messages appeared in quick succession. Answer your phone. This is insane and you know it. I'm sorry about this morning. I never meant to hurt you. Come home and we can work this out. If you go through with this restraining order, you'll regret it. I can make things very difficult for you. I know where Rachel lives. The last message sent ice through my veins. "Block him," Rachel said firmly, reading over my shoulder. "Now." With trembling fingers, I blocked Derek's number, then burst into tears. The reality of what I was facing, the threats, the manipulation, the potential for escalation, overwhelmed me. "He's showing you exactly why you needed to leave," Rachel said, holding me as I cried. "Everything he's doing right now proves you made the right decision." Through my tears, I watched the surveillance footage as Derek and Brittany finally left the house, slamming the door behind them. The empty living room, half mine, half his, stood as a perfect metaphor for our broken marriage. The home I had loved, the life I had built, the future I had planned. All of it was transformed in a single day, beginning with a thrown cup of coffee and ending with legal documents and threats. Yet beneath the grief and fear, I felt something unexpected: relief. I was free from walking on eggshells, free from the constant criticism, free from the subtle and not-so-subtle control that had become my normal. Whatever came next would be difficult, but it would be my choice. My life. On my terms. 1 month after leaving Derek, I stood in the center of my new apartment, surrounded by moving boxes and the scent of fresh paint. The space was smaller than the house I'd shared with Derek, just a one-bedroom with a tiny balcony overlooking a neighborhood park, but it was mine. Every decision, from the location to the color of the bathroom towels, had been mine alone. The physical burns on my face and neck had healed, leaving only a small patch of discoloration near my collarbone that the doctor assured me would fade with time. The emotional wounds were taking longer to heal, but I was making progress there too. The first week after leaving had been the hardest. Despite blocking Derek's number, he found ways to contact me, emails from new addresses, messages through mutual friends, even a handwritten letter delivered to my office. Each communication cycled between apologies, justifications, and thinly veiled threats. "You're experiencing a common pattern with abusers," Dr. Martinez, my therapist, explained during our second session. "They cycle through different tactics to regain control. When apologies don't work, they switch to intimidation. When intimidation fails, they try to manipulate through mutual connections." Dr. Martinez had been a lifeline during this transition. Twice-weekly therapy sessions helped me understand that the dynamics in my marriage weren't normal or healthy. She helped me recognize the gradual escalation of control that had preceded the physical assault and validated my decision to leave. "Abuse rarely starts with violence," she explained. "It begins with small boundary violations that normalize control. Financial control is often a precursor to physical abuse." Those words resonated deeply. How many boundaries had I allowed Derek to cross in the name of compromise or keeping peace? How much of myself had I surrendered to avoid conflict? The restraining order was granted without Derek's appearance in court. His absence spoke volumes. Perhaps he recognized that his behavior was indefensible, or perhaps he couldn't face the public acknowledgement of his actions. Either way, the legal protection provided both practical safety and psychological reassurance. Michael Winters proved to be exactly the attorney I needed. He was thorough, compassionate, and unintimidated by Derek's attempts to delay the legal process. When Derek finally hired his own lawyer, Michael skillfully countered their attempts to characterize the coffee incident as an accident and my departure as abandonment. "The divorce will take time," Michael warned me during our third meeting. "But the legal separation protects your finances in the meantime. Focus on rebuilding while we handle the paperwork." Rebuilding meant reconnecting with friends I'd gradually lost touch with during my marriage. I hadn't realized how isolated I'd become until I reached out to my college roommate Natalie and my former work colleague Tiffany. Both expressed that they'd been concerned about my withdrawal, but hadn't known how to reach through Derek's barriers. "He always made it so awkward when we tried to plan girls' nights," Natalie admitted over lunch. "Eventually, it seemed easier not to ask." Financial recovery proved more challenging than I anticipated. Derek had accumulated significant debt in our joint accounts, and disentangling our finances revealed more hidden spending than I'd initially discovered. Working with a financial advisor named Elaine helped me create a realistic budget and debt repayment plan. Financial abuse leaves lasting impact, Elaine explained during our first meeting. But you're young, employed, and smart. We'll get you back on solid ground. My boss, Catherine, proved to be an unexpected source of support. When I returned to work after a week's absence, she arranged for me to have a private office instead of the open workspace I'd previously occupied. For security, she explained simply. When I thanked her, she shared that she had left an abusive relationship in her 20s. The hardest part was accepting that I deserved better, she told me. Remember that as you move forward. 2 months after leaving, Catherine called me into her office and offered me a promotion to senior marketing strategist, a position I'd been working toward for over a year. This isn't charity, she clarified, seeing my hesitation. Your work has consistently exceeded expectations, especially given your personal circumstances. The team needs your leadership. The promotion came with a significant salary increase that eased my financial constraints considerably. For the first time since leaving Derek, I felt like my career trajectory was back on course. With Dr. Martinez's encouragement, I joined a support group for survivors of domestic abuse. The first meeting was intimidating, sitting in a circle with strangers, expected to share my most painful experiences. But the connection I felt with these women was immediate and profound. I kept making excuses for him, shared Monica, a software engineer whose husband had controlled her finances for years. I told myself he was just better with money, that he was protecting our future. It took him shoving me during an argument for me to recognize the pattern. Her words could have been my own. Each woman's story contained elements that resonated with my experience, and their collective strength in rebuilding their lives inspired me daily. Through the group, I met Alicia, whose quick humor and resilience drew me immediately. We began meeting for coffee before the weekly sessions, and our friendship grew beyond the context of our shared trauma. She became my first true friend in this new chapter of my life. 3 months after leaving Derek, the divorce proceedings were moving forward, though Derek continued finding ways to delay and complicate the process. His latest tactic involved claiming emotional distress due to my abandonment. It's a common strategy, Michael assured me. The courts see through it, especially with the documented assault. Stay focused on your recovery, not his tactics. I was trying to follow that advice when I encountered Derek unexpectedly. I was leaving a restaurant after lunch with colleagues when he appeared, as if he'd been waiting. "Amanda," he said, stepping into my path. "You look good." My heart raced, but I maintained my composure. "You're violating the restraining order, Derek. I need to go." "I just want to talk," he said, his tone reasonable, so similar to the Derek I had fallen in love with years ago. Things got out of hand that morning. "I've been in therapy. I'm working on myself." 5 months ago, those words might have swayed me. I might have seen them as evidence that he could change, that our marriage could be saved. Now, I recognize them as the beginning of the cycle again. "I'm glad you're getting help," I said calmly. "But we need to communicate through our attorneys. Please step aside." His expression hardened slightly. "You're really going through with this? Throwing away 5 years over one bad morning?" "It wasn't just one morning," I replied, surprising myself with my steadiness. It was a pattern that had been building for years. I deserve better. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, perhaps, or simply the realization that his usual tactics wouldn't work. Without another word, I walked past him to my car. My hands trembled as I started the engine, but not from fear, from the unexpected power of speaking my truth without apology. That evening, I sat on my small balcony watching the sunset, reflecting on the journey of the past months. The path ahead still held challenges, finalizing the divorce, continuing to rebuild financially, learning to trust again, but for the first time, I felt genuinely optimistic about my future. Dr. Martinez had asked me recently what I'd learned from this experience. The question had stayed with me, prompting deeper reflection than I expected. I'd learned that love shouldn't require surrendering your autonomy or financial independence. I'd learned that small boundary violations often signal larger issues to come. I'd learned that leaving doesn't mean failing. Sometimes it means choosing yourself when someone else won't. Most importantly, I'd learned that I was stronger than I ever imagined. The woman who left that house with burns on her face and fear in her heart had discovered reservoirs of courage she never knew she possessed. The journey of healing wasn't linear. Some days still brought tears and anger. Some nights I still woke from nightmares about coffee burning my skin. But each day brought new growth, new insights, new possibilities. I'd chosen to reclaim my story, not as a victim, but as a woman who faced adversity and emerged stronger. The ending Derek wrote for us wasn't the end of my story. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter one was writing for myself. If you're watching this and seeing parallels in your own relationship, please know you're not alone. Financial control is often the first step in a pattern of abuse that can escalate over time. Trust your instincts. Reach out for help. You deserve a life free from fear and control. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and recovery. Share it with someone who might need to hear that leaving is possible, that healing happens, that life after abuse can be beautiful in ways you never imagined. What red flags have you noticed in relationships that you wish you'd paid more attention to? What helped you recognize unhealthy patterns? Your comments might help someone else recognize their own situation. Let's continue this important conversation below. Be kind to yourselves and remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is begin again.